Hi guys, and welcome to Lizzie Dean Makes. I'm Lizzie Dean, and this is the channel where we make, mend and grow our way to a big life on a small budget. Hi guys, welcome back. So today I am going to be doing another zero waste swap, and this is making produce bags, specifically small produce bags for loose items. So this is to replace packaged vegetables. So at the moment I buy the vast majority of the vegetables that I do buy frozen, and I grow the rest during the summer. Obviously it's winter now, so we're going through our frozen stores of veg from last summer, but I can't buy frozen vegetables that aren't plastic wrapped, and the plastic wrap that they tend to be wrapped in tends not to be recyclable. So the aim here is to stop buying frozen and start buying fresh. Now this slightly annoys me for two reasons. The first reason is that, being a vegetarian, I get most of my nutrients from the vegetables that I cook with, and frozen vegetables are frozen immediately after picking and so have a much higher nutrient content than veg that have been chucked in the back of a truck and driven halfway across the country to a handling station and then shipped out nationally to supermarkets. It's not a sustainable way of buying veg, and it's not nutritionally good either. And the second issue I have with this is that it's more expensive. There's more food wastage when you're talking about using fresh veg. Even if I bring it home and prep it and freeze it, which is what I'm going to do, but it's still less it's still more wasteful than buying it all pre-frozen. So it does irritate me slightly that you can't buy frozen veg not in plastic packaging, and the plastic packaging is not usually recyclable. But the other slight issue with this is that we no longer have a farm shop in town. There used to be a farm shop in the town centre where we could have gone and bought all of our fresh fruit and veg, where it wouldn't have come from all over the country, and so it would be much nearer to the time it was picked, and the nutritional value would be higher, and the footprint, as it were, of it wouldn't be so large. But we don't have one of those anymore. There are, however, a number of delis locally in other towns and villages. So tomorrow I've got the car and I'm going to go and have a look at the health food shops and the delis in a couple of the nearby villages and towns. We don't have anything here in our town, but there might be something slightly further afield that I can do a monthly shop at and bring it all home and freeze it. So the aim of today is to make these small drawstring produce bags. So before we get into that, I want to talk to you about this book. So this is the Zero Waste Home by Bear Johnston, which my husband very kindly bought me for Christmas. I sent him a link to exactly the book I wanted, and I am just over halfway through it so far, and it's a really good book. She's incredibly witty. She was in her Google Talk and the TED Talk, which is where I found out most of this stuff about this movement, and obviously I've watched a lot of other people who've been inspired by her and by this book, but I haven't read it yet, so I am working my way through that, which is very helpful. So I am going to make them up. So what I've done already is I have cut out my pieces that I'm going to use to make these bags. So I've cut them with my pinking shears, which makes a nice zigzag edge. So that's these zigzag scissors. And the reason that you'd use pinking shears is because then it tends not to fray. So I've left some of the edges on some of them where they had the selvage, the actual edge of the woven fabric, so it's actually tied off properly on those edges, so I haven't bothered to cut those. But I have used my pinking shears on all the other edges. So I am going to fold the piece of fabric in half. I'm going to have the fold at the bottom of all of my bags because that's where I want it to be the strongest, and I'll have my sewn seams down the sides. I will be turning over the top and creating a sort of channel around here, which is where I'm going to put my drawstring, which I'm going to make from string. This was a lovely ball of string until my puppy Charlie got at it. It is now a spaghetti mess, but because I only want relatively short pieces of string, it's quite easy to cut them and extract just enough to do it. So I'm going to keep working with my ugly spaghetti string. The fabric that I'm using is calico, which I have lots of in my stash at home. I like buying calico because it's incredibly cheap, but it's also undyed, unprocessed cotton, so it's only semi-processed. So if you look at it, there are sort of darker patches, lumps and bumps and things in the fabric, but it doesn't contain any dyes or chemical elements from having been processed overly much. So I think it's a good thing to use for these bags, and I have a lot of it. I like using it anyway, so there's reams and reams of it. I literally have like, I don't know, 10 meters of the stuff. So cutting a few bags out of it won't be a problem. I'm basically going to do these in the same way that I do my Christmas bags, but I'm going to do them all different shapes. I've got some longer thin ones, particularly this one, which is going to have a seam at the bottom, but which can carry things like leeks or celery, the longer thin vegetables, cucumbers, things like that. I can put in this one, and then I'm going to have a whole load of smaller ones. So I'm going to get started. Okay, so I'm on to the last bag now. So what I want to do is to show you the process. So I've got my long strip of fabric, which has been cut out around the edges with the pinking shears, apart from the self-edge edge, which I'm just going to leave as is. So I'm going to fold over about an inch on either side, and I'm going to sew along, leaving a channel which is probably about 1.5 inches, and then leave a channel that's about 1 inch on both ends. And you want to make sure that both ends fold to the same side, so that the raw pinking sheared edges are both on the same side. So I'm just going to run that with a straight stitch through the machine. And I will then do the same to the other side, and you want the channels to be roughly the same height. Okay, we're then going to fold it in half with the right sides together. So that's the side which just has the line of stitching and no pinking showing. And stick it right sides together so that the two channels at the top line up like so. And then we're going to stitch down each of the sides. So when I get to the bottom corner, I'm going to reverse and go forward a couple of times just to make sure that the finish on this corner here is really strong, because this is one of our weak points, is the corners of the two bottom parts. I want to make sure that's really strong. I'm also not going to start stitching from the top, because I want to be able to put the string through both of these open holes, so I want these accessible. So I'm actually going to start stitching just around the line of stitching for my channel, and I'm going to go again backwards and forwards a couple of times to make sure that this particular bond is really secure, because these two parts are going to be loose and being pulled with the drawstring. So I want to make sure that I go backwards and forwards at both ends of these lines of stitching. Do the other side, but we want to make sure that everything is lying nice and flat, so that it's all nice and flat when it's right sides out. So next I'm going to turn my bag right side out and pop the corners out nicely. And next I'm going to measure out 2 pieces of string. I want the pieces of string to be the same length, but I want each one to go just over the sides like that. So it goes a full loop and comes back on itself, and I'll cut it here. And then I want the second piece to be the same length as the one we've just measured. So excuse the fact that I'm butchering this spaghetti roll of string. You would normally just use a normal ball of string that hasn't been attacked by a dog. So measure along and cut at the same point. So to make the drawstring action, I am going to thread these bits of string through with a wool needle. Now, a wool needle like this has a nice large eye in the needle. I'm going to flatten my bit of string out and get it through the eye of the needle. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the channel, turn it over and come back through the other channel. So it will come out through the holes at either end, and then at this end I'll tie a knot when I come back to the beginning. So I'll start this way. You need to be careful not to let your wool needle go through the fabric. You actually just want to be in the channel. So the blunter your wool needle is, the easier this part will be. But even if you haven't got a blunt wool needle, you can do it. You just have to be a bit more careful. Okay, so that's through the back one, and I'm now going to go through the top one as well. So I want both of the cut ends of the string to be coming out of the same side of the bag. I'm then going to tie a very straightforward knot as close to the ends of the string as possible without the potential for them to come undone. Tie that really tight. So that's one side of the drawstring. I'm now going to do the same but from the other side. So I shall have a knot of 2 ends on either side. And then on this side you'll see there's just a loop of string. So on one side there'll be a loop with a knot, and on the other side there'll just be a loop. So we're going to start on the side of the bag that doesn't already have a knot. And again, we're going to go through both channels. Go through the front first, then I'll turn it over and go through the back, retracing my steps, but in the second channel. Turn it over. As well as making sure you don't go through the fabric of the channel, it's also worth noting that you want to make sure you don't go through the string of the alternate string, the one going the other way. So now I'm going to line up my 2 loose ends here. I'm going to tie a knot, again making it go as close to the ends as possible but without actually any risk of it coming undone. Tighten it as much as possible, and I'm going to put my fingers on both knots. I'm going to pull from that way, and that's what's going to create this drawstring action. So I can now loosen the bag and tighten the bag, and I can, if necessary, tie these two together to keep it completely secured, but really that should be enough to keep my vegetables secured in my larger grocery bags. So I have finished now, and I've got 2 longer and thinner bags, 2 medium-sized sort of squarer bags, and 2 small squarer bags. So I used about 100 centimetres by about 150 centimetres, so about a metre off a roll of 150 of the calico. So that would probably set you back maybe £1.99, £2.99, somewhere between about £2 and £4 for a metre of calico. And this is essentially semi-processed natural cotton that's been undyed or untreated. So it's a natural deep cream colour with spots and bumps and blemishes, but it's very cheap, and it's very natural fibre. It's very breathable, and it's not got any chemicals in it used to treat it, to bleach it or to dye it or anything like that. So it's going to be nice and safe next to your food. So I hope you've enjoyed this programme. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to hear more about frugal small space living, and this year we're focusing on zero waste swaps in our mini-series for the new year. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, please make sure you hit the subscribe button below and hit the little bell notification icon if you'd like to be updated every time I post new content. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.